Hey, Barbie. Can I come to your house tonight?
Sure. I don't have anything big planned, just a giant blowout party with all the Barbies and planned choreography and a bespoke song. You should stop by.
So cool.
You can find me under the lights, diamonds under my eyes.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Oh, So You Liked That? With me, Joey Moser, and Clarence Moye. Hi, Clarence.
Hello. I feel like we've done excellent choreography, like Barbie.
I have to say, when I saw Barbie and that moment came, the amount of people that clapped at that part.
Really?
Oh yeah, that the showing that I was at, that was a sort of a I haven't had a movie going experience like that in a while.
Did someone stand up and recite the did you go to an AMC theater so someone could stand up and recite the AMC pledge or the Nicole Kidman speech?
No, but I feel like I've heard many people talking about that this weekend.
Did you see the video of the guy that stood up in his pink shirt and pink fedora and he held his fedora over his heart and recited the whole thing?
No,
Like
wow.
You know, he's been practicing for that. Like he's been sitting at home watching that clip over and over and over and just like writing down all the words and memorizing it and reciting it in front of the mirror. And that was his big moment. And congratulations to that guy,
Good for
whoever
him.
you are. Good for you. You've got to live your dream.
I will say, if that man is gonna do that, I really hope you fight for marriage equality and shit when it gets on the chopping block. So
no, just recite the AMC speech. That's it.
you damn homos and your priorities. I'll have to send it to you, but one of my favorite pictures of that, it was shortly after the AMC commercial came out, and it looks like a picture like taken during wartime of someone in a theater, and in front of them and a couple rows in front of them, you could see the Nicole Kidman ad playing on, and there's somebody standing up like this. And I think it's so funny. I would love to print that out and have it framed.
They should someone should do, the nurse, the soldier kissing the nurse from 1945. They should do that in front of it. That would be amazing.
Oh
The best
God.
thing that has ever been done for that is right around the time House of Gucci came out, when they took the movie that she was watching and replaced it with Lady Gaga getting banged. We come to this place. You haven't seen that? Oh,
no.
It's you got to make a note in Joeyland. Make a note and go and dig that up. It is amazing.
I'm literally writing House of Gucci banging.
While you were, we're here to talk about Barbenheimer, as you see proudly adorned on your shirt. I'm sorry, I'm a lesser human being. I do not have Barbenheimer paraphernalia.
I have an extra $20 laying around to order a shirt on Redbubble and then to get mad when it didn't come in on time. So I wanted to wear this to both movies, but it didn't come in. And it's very snug, I will say. The material, the sizing chart, not very accurate. So I would stand up, but I don't want to stand up too much.
Yeah, so funny. My for Father's Day this year, my wife bought me one of these like a button-up shirt, short sleeve button-up shirt, and it's that Roosevelt's line that Disney has partnered with.
Yeah.
And it's the mine seagulls from Finding Nemo.
Oh yeah.
And she got me a large, which usually I do wear a large, believe it or not. But it must have been like a child's large or something like that. I put that thing on and it was just like everything was bursting.
Usually Saturday night, I'm like, can I wear this yet? Because I have started working out again. I was like, can I wear it? And I button it. I'm like, nope. Pick it up, put it back.
So what you mentioned was your enthusiastic and engaged audience for Barbie, and I think we should start with Barbie because that's an excellent segue into talking about it, because I think your enjoyment of this film is greatly impeded or accentuated by the audience that you see it with. I still like the film, but I think I would have loved it had I seen it with an audience that was not dead. Literally, well, first of all, I have to explain the madness that happened pre-show.
Why?
Because so the theater down the street from me was all through the week was sold out, and so they added screens at the last minute for
God.
additional ticket purchasing. So I grabbed a seat in the new screen, one of the new screens. It's a smaller theater, and we got there pretty early. I mean, I think we were like the fifth or sixth, seventh person in the theater because it was myself and my two kids. And we go and we had seats up at the very top in the middle. And like, we just started watching people gradually come in. And then all of a sudden, like an usher or somebody working with the theater that had the little red vest on
Yeah.
comes in and just starts walking down these aisles and like checking people's seats randomly. You would not believe the number of people who just literally walked in there and took somebody's seat. Now, this was a sold out showing. They were like, oh, what?
So it was assigned
We
seats
have
and everything?
assigned seats?
Uh,
Yeah, no, right? Right? I mean, this theater's had assigned seats for 10 years.
oh my God.
Anyway, so we got
Don't
there was
stress
this
me out.
a gaggle of teenage girls was sitting in the like the row right in front of us. So we were in the very back. They were in like the fourth row, and their purchased seats were front row center. So they got busted and ushered down. It was just all these people were just coming in and just like it was like musical chairs or something like that. It was insane. Anyway, and after all of that, I guess everybody got really tired after all of that activity because as soon as the movie started, they all died. There was not a pulse in the theater. No one laughed, and these were all 80% women, 80 and 50% teenage girls.
Okay.
No laughter, nothing. It was not even during like the Ken number toward the end of the film. There was nothing, zero, no reaction whatsoever. It was really strange. And I know you'd mentioned that you'd had a fun reaction, a fun crowd. And Sasha, when she saw it, she had a fun crowd as well. And I think comedy shared with other people becomes a better comedy. I think.
Because you realize that it's okay to laugh. Oh, it's okay to have a vocal response. I will say, I saw it at a 9 o'clock show. I had tickets to a 7 o'clock show. I had a kerfuffle with work. I was very anxious because it was me and like 7 other homosexuals. They had already given me money. I was like, God, what if I can't get tickets to see Barbie? We got really, we actually got like really good seats in like a Dolby Atmos showing. I thought it was interesting that Dolby Atmos wasn't showing Oppenheimer, and granted they were showing it in the IMAX theater. It was an old AMC that an independent chain had bought out. So no Nicole Kidman ad for me, but I think my crowd, probably the average age was maybe 25, 20. But I will say this theater, it's an older theater. It probably has like 20 screens. It is always dead. That theater is always dead, even though it's like right around from a Target and some other stores. It was bonkers in that lobby. Like, I actually don't think the staff was prepared because like the lines for the concession stand were really long. But I thought it was really cool. Like, everybody was in pink. Mostly everybody in my party was in pink. The crowd that I saw it with was into it. Like, when the Warner Brothers logo came up and it was like pink or blue or whatever, everyone started clapping. We had two completely different experiences. I will say Megan told me today, because she just thought this morning, she had an experience like yours. She said she was like the only one laughing, and there was a good amount of people.
Yeah, I mean, I laughed out loud several times, and I felt like I was being rude because it's like, oh, wait, I'm not supposed to laugh.
Yeah.
But the last thing I want to say about sort of the theater going experience before we actually jump into our reaction to Barbie, which is, I don't think, like, as we are recording, the box office numbers are coming in from this weekend, and it's massive. I mean, it's insane, the fact that Oppenheimer's made $77 million so far, projected.
Oh wow, I didn't know
and
that. Shit.
Barbie 150, and those could go up or could go down. I mean, when you get that high, it's really it's difficult to predict. I do not think Oppenheimer would have made $77 million had it not opened opposite Barbie, and the whole Barbenheimer meme started. I mean, I think that, as much as Christopher Nolan reportedly hates that his film is being tied with Barbie, I don't think it would have been half as successful as it is without the enthusiasm, engagement, and let's go back to the theater attitude
Hmm.
that these two films are having.
And the like double featureness of it. I had heard so many people like waiting because I had tickets that I printed out in the like little vestibule, and then I had to wait in line to get my tickets
Mm.
torn. And I heard at least 5 or 6 people talking about how they had seen Oppenheimer at 5 o'clock and they're so excited to see Barbie, and sort of I sort of like rolled my eyes when he said he didn't like being tied to it, and I was like, this is sort of, as cheesy as it sounds, it really feels like a cultural moment.
It does. It
um
absolutely does.
and
I mean,
I think it's really fun.
I think Oppenheimer
Yeah.
would have done well, but it would have been 40, 45, maybe 50, not almost 80 million
Yeah.
dollars. I mean,
No way. No way. And I will say that when Oppenheimer, I went to I saw Barbie at 9 and that night, and then I saw Oppenheimer the next day at 10 a.m. and that theater was packed. And I
yeah,
was
yeah.
shocked. I was like, 10 a.m.? Really? Okay.
So what did you think of Barbie?
I loved it. I've been thinking about it all weekend. I love how bright and colorful it is. I think it's probably my favorite Greta Gerwig movie.
Mhm.
Um, there's something I was immediately taken with it when you saw the opening sequence where Barbie's in Barbie Land, and she's, explaining her world and what she does during the day, and she's, I don't want to say miming what her daily routine is, and I realized that she is acting as if like a big hand is around her and she's
Right.
being played with, and I was like, I'm in. I think it's the physical comedy that Margot Robbie brings to this is amazing. I feel like I immediately already want to see it again. Like I think there's a
Sorry, I got thirsty for a second there.
no, like the part where she like actually has water hit her in the face. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm not used to that."
Yeah.
I just thought it's really funny. It's over the top. It's like I have been, as you probably imagine, the costumes, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, give me Jacqueline Durant's phone number now. I want to talk to her all about it. I loved the music. I loved that the cast was so big. Even though I knew it was going to be big, I feel like seeing it actually play out made me realize how big it was. Um, I loved how self-aware it was. I loved that the line about Margot Robbie in the movie
Mhm.
was amazing. I don't know, there's something about it where I was just like, I'm sort of in love with it. And I will admit that I the reaction from people leading into it gave me a lot of pause, because I was like, what if you guys are talking about it so much? And after, some of the test screenings came out and everyone was like, greatest movie of all time. Whoa! Like, I was like, what if I don't like it? Because everybody else is talking it up so much. I didn't know if it was hyperbolic or not, but I immediately want to see it again. I think it really delivers on multiple levels, and I will say, I think I'm more open to hearing other people's opinions about this movie specifically because Barbie has been around for so long, Barbie the product. I feel like your experience with it sort of depends on what kind of baggage you have coming into it.
Mhm.
I was a little faggot who used to play with Barbies, and my parents were fine with it. So, even though I don't think about Barbie like that anymore, um, there's like a weird appreciation that I have. So I was just really, really, really taken with all. And also, it's just weird. It's a weird movie. Like
It is a very weird movie.
I kept thinking all throughout, I was like, this is a summer blockbuster in the middle of July, busiest weekend of the whole year, and people are like, you know, choking this movie down because they're not choking it down, but they're eating it up. Like and it's a weird movie, but considering how meta, how self-aware, how over the top and sort of bold it is. I kept thinking that the entire time. I was like, what a weird fucking movie. In a good way, in a very good way.
In a very good way. It is a very different film. It is
Yeah.
kind of Greta Gerwig. It is Greta Gerwig's best film, by the way.
Mhm.
Um, it is the kind of film that big budget Hollywood filmmakers have always wanted to make, where it is, has all the trappings of a normal Hollywood feature, but it
Mhm.
is about a lot of things.
Yeah, so
And
much.
it is an incredibly deep film. I was actually I was prepared for this take on it. I was still surprised at how deep it is, about how moving it often is.
Mhm.
How, especially when you get to the ending and there's a montage that just
Mhm.
absolutely, was very
Yeah.
sweet and poignant and almost, broke my heart. And it just and then it's followed up by one of the best jokes of the whole movie where, and I'm not going to spoil this at all. We're not going to spoil any jokes here. You guys can go figure that out on your own and see that for yourselves. But whatever you think is going to happen come out of Barbie's mouth at the end of the film, Margot Robbie's mouth at the end of the film, it is not what she says. You know what I'm
It
talking
is.
about? Where
Yeah.
she,
The,
yeah, okay. Was not, I thought she was going in to do one thing, and I asked my kids, they thought the same thing.
mhm.
And that is not at all what I was expecting to come out of her
Yeah.
mouth. But there's a lot of unexpected moments like that. And you know,
How
I
upsetting that is. Yeah.
absolutely. And I did not expect a summer blockbuster about Barbie to contain one of the most beautiful lines I think I'll ever hear
Oh wow.
all year, which is mothers stand still so their daughters can look back to see how far they've come. I mean, that
I
is
like
perfect.
I like verbally reacted to that. I was like, huh. Like it's so uh just when like, there's a lot of talk about how, Greta Gerwig's taking her career to sort of a different level with this, and she's doing the Narnia movies for Netflix. But it's just sort of like she's not gonna let you forget how good of a writer she is and how she can very subtly imbue a lot of dialogue with a lot of feeling.
Mhm.
And that I felt that really, really deeply. And also the moment at the bus stop with Anne Roth. Did not know that was Anne
Right.
Roth.
No, not
And
until today.
yeah, until she was like you're so beautiful, and then it just cuts to the next scene. I was like, Jesus,
Yeah.
God,
What summer blockbuster does anything approaching that? Nothing. I've
no.
never seen anything like this before. Give Greta Gerwig an Oscar for screenplay here. I mean, this is Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, I suppose. It is it's a brilliant screenplay. Um, I
Great.
I
Yeah.
really liked the film quite a bit. I had some issues with it. I thought maybe at times it was a little slow. Probably could have used a little bit of tightening.
Mhm.
Um, but I had a really great time. And another thing that was surprising to me is I was prepared to come in and be, floored with the Ken-ness of the whole thing, right? The
Mhm.
the Ryan Gosling dominating the film. And while I found him to be very funny and very good in his role, I think people are giving Margot Robbie a very short shrift. She is fantastic. This is her movie. It is not Ryan
Yeah.
Gosling's movie, in my opinion. She is she has to do so much more than vaguely the two or three notes that he has to play through the whole film. I mean, he's just Ken. So but he's good. He's very, very good. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying people are wrong to praise him. Of course, he's doing great work. Let's just
Mhm.
not. Let's just let's remember that Margot Robbie's here too, and she is
Yeah.
equally good in a much more complex role. I think.
Well, it's also like all the stuff that you hear America Ferrera, who's also amazing in this. Everything that she does in that whole uh speech, like she has Margot Robbie sort of has to carry that on her shoulders in a way that the character doesn't expect that she has to.
Right.
And I sort of want to be like, all the praise you guys were talking about her from Babylon, saying that she goes for it, goes for broke, whatever. I was like, please transfer all of that energy into her in this because she's so funny and she can do a lot with just like, a lift of her eyebrow in this just
Mhm.
because what the character is and what the character represents. And sort of going back to what you said about Ryan Gosling, he's really great. And the more I think about his performance, the more I appreciate it because I'm thinking about that line that's in the trailer that's in the very beginning of the movie where he was like, "Hey, do you want to have a sleepover?" And she's like, "Why?" And he
Yeah.
says,
It's like
he's like, "I honestly have no idea." There's something about the purity in which he says that I think another actor would have done something completely different with it.
mhm.
Um And I don't know. I think a someone who like Ken, which by the way, people having a lot of opinions, they'll be like, oh, you're degrading Ken. Oh, I can't believe you're doing this. Please just Google Ken doll and you just see the look that that poor doll has been put in. Nobody cared about Ken. No one cares about Ken. He's just Ken. Um, but I don't know. There's he's great. I think you're totally right. Margot Robbie is wonderful. She gets to do stuff that I was so surprised by that I felt bad that me as not a huge Margot Robbie fan, that I felt bad being like, she impressed me. Needless to say,
Yeah,
she impressed me so much. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Overall, I mean, I thought it was a very solid film.
Yeah.
You know, I think I wish I'd seen it with an audience that had a bit more of a reaction to it. You know, maybe two other people to laugh through the jokes with me instead of just me, just laughing out loud like a
You just
moron.
like you just like
Like,
walk out. It's like, will someone please laugh with me?
like,
Anyone.
Robert De Niro and Cape Fear sitting in the auditorium. I did
Oh
not
my
do
God.
that.
This is a national emergency.
Detonator charged.
We're in a race against the Nazis. And I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb.
Oppenheimer is the 3-hour epic by Christopher Nolan about Robert, is it Robert J. or is it J. Robert Oppenheimer?
J. Robert.
J. Robert Oppenheimer. Yeah, that's it. For some reason, it didn't sound right when I said it. As essentially the head of the Manhattan Project, who built the atomic bomb that was dropped on, or built the prototype of the atomic bomb bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end World War II, or end our skirmish with Japan. It's an incredibly complex film. There's so much going on in it that it's, I mean, it needed the 3 hours to cover all the material that Nolan wanted to cover. But it's yeah, I'm gonna let you go because I'm still processing my thoughts on it.
Sure. So she long. Um, I feel bad saying
Put that on
that,
the poster.
but she long. Um, I actually think that I was really surprised by a lot of things that Christopher Nolan does in this movie. We know he's great with tension. We know he's good with action. We know he is good with combining different set pieces together in the editing to make it a really round, exciting narrative. I think he has a really hard time with this because it is, as I joked with you, I was like, oh, it's like the Big Bang Theory, but with no humor. But making that exciting has to be incredibly difficult. Um, like there is a sequence after when people are praising Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer for the bomb that he built after
Trinity test.
yeah after
Yep.
the test, and people are stomping their feet and he's sort of, I don't say disassociating, but disassociating and really realizing what he created and how it's going to affect the world from here on out. You can't put the genie back in the bottle, this, that, and the other. I thought that was, I didn't think that Christopher Nolan was going to do that, or really lean into a lot of emotional aspects of it. I feel like maybe I sometimes think that Christopher Nolan is what people say a cold director, where his movies are emotionless, and I don't necessarily agree with that with this one. Um, I feel, I mean, I just saw it yesterday, so I feel I have been thinking a lot about it, and I liked it a lot. I think it's a very ambitious, sort of stunning achievement
Of cinema.
of cinema. Just like um I don't know. I think it's a very important thing to do. I think it's actually to tell the story. I think it's bold of him to sort of talk about how, government versus science and how those two shouldn't, go together, and like, you not being able to stop something once it started, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah, no, I mean there's the whole it's the Prometheus thing, right? I mean, you give
mhm,
people, you're giving them fire, but then you're being paid for it. You're being persecuted for it. That's what I meant to say.
yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I mean it's all right there. I think I struggle. Well, I struggle with Christopher Nolan films to begin with. I'm just going to be very honest and upfront with that. I am not a huge fan of his as a director. Um, that sequence that you talked about where he is getting ready to give a speech post the Trinity test. There's stomping, there's clapping, there's
Mhm,
yelling, there's bombs exploding, there's all kinds of noise that's happening in that film. And I saw this in an IMAX presentation, and I, not only me, my son, we had to close our ears because it was so ear splittingly loud. Like it was
oh wow.
uncomfortable, like that stomping and that screaming. It just
Mhm,
it felt like my eardrum was being damaged by the film. And I've had that issue. And what's weird is that some of Cillian Murphy's dialogue, I think, in IMAX was washed out to me. Like I couldn't hear a little bit
hmm.
of what he had to say. um there are some things here that annoy me. I found the the way it was structured a bit annoying. Like, we have a modern day in the film, and then you've got during that panel interview that he has, or that hearing, that closed room hearing.
Mhm,
um then you go back to one era where he's interacting with Robert Downey Jr.'s character, and then they go back and tell another story, and then they take it back to the creation of the bomb. and
mhm.
and I don't know why he does that. I find it fussy. Just personally, I find it fussy. The other issue I had with it was the underwritten relationship between Oppenheimer and his wife, um, played by Emily Blunt. I felt like in a 3 hour film, you can't find more than a minute and a half to have a scene between them that is not her talking about him, or her saying, you haven't done this, or you're being a coward, or you're in doing,
Mhm.
they didn't have any conversation about their personal life that I remember in
Yeah,
3 hours.
I do think that I wish that um she would have. I don't know anything about her. Now,
Uh-huh.
granted, the movie's called Oppenheimer, about
Right.
him and this gigantic thing, so I'm not asking for like a 20-minute sequence about her life, but
No.
I I wanted to know necessarily why, and maybe I just missed it. I wanted to know why she was so uh feverish in telling him, you need to do it this way, you can't do it this way, why are you doing that, don't martyr yourself, this, that, and the other. I mean, the only scene that I think Emily Blunt, that I think people are going to respond to with her and then shove her into the awards conversation, is the interrogation scene that she has
Well,
at the end.
that's her biggest
Yeah,
moment. I mean, by far. I mean, it's not even close.
yeah. And if I saw one person say this is the best performance that she's ever done, I've never angrily scrolled past something so fast in my life, and I was just like, nope, Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
So so she was actually in it more than I expected, because Christopher Nolan movies, I feel like they're always like, oh look, a woman, and then that's it.
They get the
Um,
Florence Pugh treatment.
yeah. Um, I wanted more of her too. I didn't know what was going on with her. I know that's a common criticism with Nolan movies and women in Nolan movies, but I think the relationship between Cillian Murphy and Florence Pugh, I was sort of fascinated with that, and we don't get a lot of it.
No. Granted, there's a lot of material there, and I understand
Yes,
this is not a limited series. I know he doesn't have 8 hours to tell a film. He's, and the 3 hours is well packed with information and
yes.
all that. Um, but I think there are some things pull back on. I don't necessarily know that we needed the 30 minutes of him, of his life at school. where where you think he's going to poison his teacher. I don't know that we needed that. I think maybe there were a couple of other more human interest things that that could have been introduced that would have, I think, made it a bit more well-rounded, in
Mhm.
my opinion. And clearly I'm in the minority here because everybody loves this film. But but I do appreciate the film for what it is. I think Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. are fantastic in this. Like, it's both of them give excellent performances. I struggle to find out to think about which one I like better. I also thought the 30 to 45 minutes of the Trinity test sequence
Oh, that was
was
great. Yeah.
expert filmmaking. I mean, that's some of the best stuff that Christopher Nolan has ever done. It reminded me, the tension reminded me of, I don't know if you remember in The Dark Knight, where the Joker had the bomb on the
Oh
boat.
yeah. Yeah.
That, he really does know how to do tension in some moments. I just wish it weren't so bloated with Nolanness everywhere else. But again, it's a minority opinion there, and I'm not saying it's a bad film. Certainly that's not the conversation that you and I had when I first saw it, but I've realized I had different reasons for that reaction, and I will own up to that. It is not a bad film. It's a very ambitious film, and I
Mhm.
celebrate its ambition. I just personally don't like Christopher Nolan, so it's just going to color my opinion, I think.
Yeah, I have a sort of back and forth with him. A lot of times I was just like, I was going through his filmography and I was like, love Memento. Hey, I don't like The Prestige. Love Dark Knight. Oh, I really hate Interstellar. Um, so going into this, huge historical 3-hour epic, I was excited for all that tension stuff that I know that he does really well. But then I did feel like I realized after the Trinity test, I was just like, there's like an hour left. Like, what?
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't know anything about like the sort of like tribunal stuff. I didn't know any of that. So I felt kind of stupid, um, wondering, I was like, what are we doing for the next 65, 70 minutes?
yeah,
Um, and I think
yeah.
that's probably maybe Downey Jr.'s, that's probably my favorite section of him in that third half. I think he's
Mhm.
fantastic in the movie.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sorry, you're gonna say something.
No, I was just going to say, I did read a paragraph from a critic who shall not be named because this critic is not very popular on the internet. But this person, he made a reference to the fact that if you didn't watch the documentary about Oppenheimer, and if you didn't
Mhm.
read the book American Prometheus, a lot of people, he will struggle with the film
Mhm.
because it is an in-depth portrait of a person that not many people know very much about.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the film necessarily cares about the fact that you know who he is. Like, it's just, this is
Mhm.
who this man is. You can go and find some information, and then we're going to present you this aspect of his life. I mean, it's almost like, structurally it's almost made like Spielberg's Lincoln, in that you cut like a
Mhm.
very specific point of this person's life, and this is how you tell who this man is through that very specific point.
Yeah.
Which Lincoln, you can do that because everybody knows who Abraham Lincoln is, but Oppenheimer is different. You don't bring in that predetermined knowledge, that presubscribed knowledge about his persona. I know a lot of people have done that research, and I did not. So that may be another reason why I kind of struggled to, um, I don't want to say
Mhm.
struggle to care about it, but just, it was a
Well, if
lot.
you, yeah, if you, I mean, if you don't know the specific sort of like, I don't say milestones, but specific, lampposts where the movie is going, I feel like you would probably struggle. Like, I had no idea what was going to happen, like I said, but also like I sort with a lot of the characters, this is a huge cast.
Oh
Sort of,
yeah.
I mean, if you talk about both of these movies have humongous casts. It's kind of crazy. But like it's like, oh, Rami Malek is here for 2 scenes. Oh, Michael Angarano's in here for 2 scenes. That was sort of delightful for me in a weird way, but also it's just like I don't know historically who any of these people are. So maybe that's why some people would struggle with it too, just because you can tell this is probably his biggest undertaking,
Yeah.
because not only is it just he's telling a specific moment in history, but it's like the breadth of it and the sort
Right.
of the innumerable amount of people in it. It's sort of insane how large this movie is.
And can we say this is Best Actor winner Rami Malek, who is now, has barely any dialogue in his follow-up film?
I don't know what historical context you mean. What
Oh yeah,
Best Actor?
yeah. Sorry.
I'll wait for Christopher Nolan talking about the 2000 whatever year it was actor race, and God.
So speaking of Oscars, do we think that this moment in time, like if the Oscars were being voted on in a month, I would say both films were in the top 10 for sure. We don't know what the rest of the fall is going to look like. The strike is threatening, studios are threatening to move their big tent poles out of the fall. We're not going to talk about that here, but I have a lot of thoughts on that one. Maybe we'll hit that on the water cooler podcast. But do we think Barbie and Oppenheimer obviously will be in the Best Picture race, and Nolan probably wins director unless Scorsese wins a second one for Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't know that Oppenheimer can win Best Picture on a preferential ballot, but do you think Barbie gets in?
I'm like a soft yes right now. I think that, it has an A cinema score, so audience like it. It's going to be a mammoth hit. So if they're talking about ticking off boxes of things that the Academy, especially in the last like 5 or 6 years, have been worried about, movies that make money and things that people like, I think those check. Both Greta Gerwig's last 2 movies have been nominated for Best Picture. Now, granted, one of them is like an indie darling, and one of them is like an indie. Well, it's not an indie; it's a studio period piece with Little Women. I would probably say right now, yes to picture, but no to director, and right now maybe no to screenplay, just because I feel like it's one of those things where people sort of can't wrap their head around how complicated adapting that thing is. I think it should be in there for screenplay, but I think it's probably picture and like a ton of below the lines for Barbie, like song, production, costumes, stuff like that. I think Ryan Gosling, as of right now, is probably in. So long story short, answer to your question, yes, I both think they're in for Best Picture right now, but I could see Barbie falling out, despite everything that it has going for it.
I would be really disappointed if Barbie didn't get in for screenplay. I think that screenplay is what sells the whole thing. But we always, if the Academy's history with comedy has never been strong, and we're just going to go back to Elaine May not getting an Oscar nomination for The Birdcage.
Never forget. It's like
the most ludicrously deserved screenplay of the last 30 years, and it failed to get a nomination.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it again right now. If anyone, I get a whiff of The Birdcage, I'm turning it on. Like, dear God. The thing about, I'm hoping in terms of the screenplay, I hope that there's enough seriousness in Barbie with those like really beautiful moments that really locks it up for that. Like, I had seen somebody online on Twitter saying, that they thought they were surprised by what Barbie does at the very end, specifically for the character of Barbie. And I think that surprises everybody. But the sort of dramatic loveliness that has, I love that moment because it's serious. It sort of is like, you always talk about how Barbie can be anything and it'll teach you to achieve whatever you want. But it sort of made me think, at least in my interpretation, it's like, well, why can't it happen for her? I don't know. There's something that's really kind of profound and beautiful about that. And God, I hope it gets it for screenplay. But also, if they're starting to pull shit, like, are we going to be looking at a bare bones Oscars?
Yeah.
Amazon's really gearing up to put Air in there. Let's do it.
Another conversation for another time. Well, Joey, thank you for joining me to talk about Barbenheimer.
Yeah, good time.
Yep. Well, Tom Cruise running away.
Yeah.